when you're building something, primarily what you're doing is you're taking multiple pieces and you're putting them together, right? And this is something we can do in calisthenics as well. We can take multiple full-fledged skills and we can piece them together to create these cool sequences. For example, if you're able to do an L-sit, you're able to do a frog stand looking thing, if you're able to do the sort of pressing, pushing element between the frog handstand and the actual handstand, if you can balance the handstand, and if you can start moving towards a one-arm handstand, if you want to make this an even longer and more fancy sequence, then as long as you can do these skills and you can do the transition elements between them, you can perform this really cool sequence. Awesome. Another example would be that you perform a lache, so you swing from bar to bar, then you grab onto the second one and you perform a muscle up. And that's cool and all, but one thing we need to keep in mind is that most times, before you can run, you need to learn how to walk. Now, for that you might say, most times?
Sometimes you gotta run before you can walk.
So yeah, most times. But this leads me on to the main point I really want to talk about, which is deconstruction. When you're doing Legos and you want to tear apart whatever you've built to build something else, like when you're doing deconstruction with Legos, you take two pieces and you separate them. That's really all that happens, right? And you can do the same thing in calisthenics. Sure, you could do it with larger sequences to be like what skills actually are involved in this. That's fine. But what you could also do is that you can take an individual skill and you can find out what meta components are involved in that particular skill. For example, the muscle up, right? You can divide it into different components, that being a pull up and a dip. So you have a high pull up and you have a straight bar dip. And also something that's important to keep in mind when we do this Lego method, this deconstruction of actual calisthenic skills, is that we remember that in addition to there being components, you also have something else when it comes to calisthenics, and those are bridges or transitions, right? It doesn't matter if you can do a pull-up and a dip if you can't transition between them, because otherwise you won't be able to piece them together into the one skill that is the muscle up, right? Sometimes this can be pretty chill, right? Whether it's theoretically or practically, it can be pretty chill to be like, okay, you see a muscle up and it's like, that is just a dip and it's a pull-up. Okay, that's pretty simple. Other times, however, it's not that simple to see what components are actually involved within a singular skill and how you can sort of separate movements out in order to find weak links, in order to be able to strengthen different aspects so you can later piece it back together and have the actual skill, right? Prime example of this is the one-arm pull-up, right? How would you train this in terms of individual movements and you'd separate it out? It's not that simple to see, at least not at first glance, right? And you're especially cooked when this tool can't even help you, right? So shout out to all of my fellow Lego fanboys out there that grew up with these. But my point with all of this is that if you stick with it, this deconstruction, you'll find a way. And my point is simply as follows, is that the process of deconstructing skills into smaller components, right, which then later on can be practiced individually, right, this process is in and of itself a skill, and so you can improve at it. And the deconstruction makes it easier to find and strengthen weak links on the path to victory in calisthenics. And that's really crucial, because with something like you have on the screen here, which is the deconstruction of the muscle up, right, we can look at, okay, I can do a pull-up, I can do a dip, but this is my weak link. I can't transition between them, right? And fun fact, this is actually what most people struggle with when it comes to muscle up. They have enough strength to do the pulling phase, they have enough strength to do the pushing phase of the dip. They lack the understanding and the actual execution of the transition, right? And so my entire point then is that this is an incredibly useful way of looking at calisthenics, right? Looking at this deconstruction, this sort of Lego method, and taking the skill, putting it down into sort of meta components with bridges. That's the crucial thing when you're doing it for calisthenics, right? With the transition elements in between. And that way, you can find your weak links, you can strengthen those up, and then bring it together into a full skill later on. By the way, if you want to join our free community to improve your performance, whether that be strength or skills or a bit of both, whatever have you, click the top link in the description down below. Also, second link in the description down below if you want to apply for free one-on-one coaching directly with me. So, with that said, let me know what you think about this Lego method, this analogy. Let me know if you've tried it out yourself. And as always, thanks for watching. Goodbye.